All right, everyone, welcome back, ready for another deep dive. Today we're tackling ancient artifacts, the kind that make you rethink everything you thought you knew about history. We're talking potential advanced civilizations, maybe even predating our own. And our guide for this exploration, a fascinating video clip with insights from Billy Carson himself.
Yeah, and the objects we're going to look at, I don't know, they really make you wonder, could they really rewrite history as we know it?
No kidding. And speaking of rewriting history, first up are the Ubaid statuettes, discovered in Iraq way back in 1919, and they have a very, how we say, unique look, definitely reptilian. So what are your initial thoughts on that? What jumps out at you?
Well, first up, they're definitely not your typical human or animal figures you see in a lot of ancient art. I mean, one of them is even breastfeeding, and that's a distinctly mammalian thing.
It is. It really makes you think, right?
Yeah.
Like, why would ancient people depict something so different from what they saw every day? Unless, of course, they did see beings like this.
Exactly. And to add another layer to this, the city where these statuettes were found, it was surprisingly advanced for its time. Like, we're talking paved streets, flushing toilets, and the masonry. Way more sophisticated than you'd expect.
Yeah. I've seen pictures of the archways in the precision of those bricks. It's mind-blowing, honestly. Makes you think about the skill level they had.
No doubt. And that level of sophistication, it makes you think, what's the connection between this advanced culture and the reptilian beings in those statuettes? I mean, could these beings even predate, like the Anunnaki, the Sumerian gods? Or even the Atlanteans? Maybe there was an even earlier, more advanced civilization that influenced the people of
Whoa. So you're talking like layers of civilizations building on each other over time. That's a pretty wild thought.
It is. And there's another thing about these Ubaid statuettes. They're not all the same. Some of them are male figures, and they're holding staffs.
So does that mean, like advanced tool use, just because they're holding staffs?
It's definitely up for debate. And yeah, you got to be careful about jumping to conclusions. But think about it. The staffs, the advanced architecture in their city planning. Maybe those staffs are more than just walking sticks.
Okay, I'm listening. I'm keeping an open mind. So we've got these mysterious reptilian statuettes. They're found in a super advanced city. What other artifact has kind of piqued your interest?
Okay, let's switch gears. Let's head over to Turkey, and I want to talk about the Istanbul shim. This one, well, it was actually discovered by a farmer, but at first people thought it was fake because the details were so intricate, just unbelievably detailed.
Oh, really? What kind of details are we talking about? What makes it so remarkable?
Well, imagine this. You have a figure, and they're seated inside something that looks almost like a vehicle. And there are details like hand placements, even things that some people think could be exhaust nodules. It's like, I don't know, it's like looking at an ancient blueprint, a blueprint for some kind of technology that shouldn't even exist in that era.
Wait, so hold on. It's not just a statue, like a typical statue. This thing might actually be showing someone inside some sort of vehicle.
Exactly. And yeah, it's definitely a unique interpretation. Even Zecharia Sitchin, the guy who's famous for his ancient astronaut theories, even he was intrigued by the Istanbul shim.
Wow. Okay. That's saying something. So how old is this thing?
They think it's at least 2,200 years old. And if that's true, that means it predates a lot of what we think we know about the timeline for advanced technology.
That is wild.
Yeah.
It really makes you think, like, how much do we not know about what ancient civilizations were capable of?
Exactly. And, it really ties into this idea that Carson talks about a lot. Like, what if modern science is just rediscovering knowledge that ancient cultures already had?
That is fascinating. What makes you think there's this connection between, like, ancient knowledge and modern science?
Okay, I'll give you an example. So in Carson's book, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, he talks about how ancient texts actually describe turning photons into matter. And guess what? Modern scientists have actually done that. They've done it in labs recently.
So you're saying, like, this idea that was floating around in ancient texts is being proven by modern science. That's a pretty strong connection.
It is. And it kind of makes you wonder, right? Is our understanding of history really complete? What if a lot of what we call discoveries are actually, they're actually rediscoveries of knowledge that was lost for centuries?
Whoa. That's a mind-blowing thought. It really makes you think, like, what happened to all that knowledge?
Yeah.
And what else might be out there waiting to be rediscovered?
Those are great questions, and we'll definitely dig into some possible explanations for that. And we'll look at some other fascinating connections between ancient knowledge and modern science as we keep going with our deep dive.
Yeah, it's like history isn't just this, like, straight line. It's more like this cycle. things getting discovered and then lost and then rediscovered.
Right. It makes you wonder, what other things do we think are modern that might actually have, like, ancient roots?
That's a good question. Any examples come to mind?
Well, have you ever thought about, like, the metric system? Like, we think of that as a pretty new thing. But get this, some research suggests that it came from the Proto-Sumerian language, like, thousands of years ago.
Wait, are you serious? The metric system that old? It's hard to even imagine.
Yeah, pretty wild, right? And it really just shows how, I don't know, how much knowledge those ancient civilizations might have had. We tend to underestimate them, looking back from our modern perspective.
It's like we're only seeing a tiny piece of the puzzle. Like, we think we know their story, but it's probably way more complex than we realize. So, okay, we've talked about the Ubaid statuettes, the Istanbul Shem, and now this whole connection with ancient knowledge and modern science. What else? Where do we go from here?
Let's dive a bit deeper into these advanced civilizations, like how they might have influenced us. Carson talks a lot about the Anunnaki and the Atlanteans. What do you know about them?
Honestly, I've heard of them, obviously, but I know I'm not totally clear on all the details. Maybe you could give us a little crash course.
Sure. So the Anunnaki, from the Sumerian texts, they're these deities, these gods who came down to Earth and they played a role in creating humanity. And some people, like Sitchin, they think the Anunnaki, they might have been extraterrestrials.
Extraterrestrials. Whoa. Okay, so we're talking about alien influence in our ancient past. That's a pretty big idea to wrap your head around.
It is. And then there are the Atlanteans. They're often portrayed as this super advanced civilization. They lived on an island that sank, that's lost now. It's mostly considered a myth, but people have been fascinated by it for centuries.
Oh, totally. A lost city with advanced technology. I mean, come on, that's like the ultimate mystery.
Yeah.
But how do the Anunnaki and the Atlanteans connect to those artifacts we were talking about?
It's all about interpretation, connecting the dots. Some researchers, they see those reptilian features on the Ubaid statuettes, and they think, hey, maybe those are the Anunnaki. And then others look at the Istanbul Shem, that figure in the vehicle, and they think, maybe that's Atlantean technology.
But is that solid evidence? Or is it more like, I don't know, speculation?
That's the question, isn't it? The million-dollar question. We're dealing with interpretations here. Interpretations of old texts, of artifacts, of myths. So yeah, there's definitely room for different perspectives and a healthy dose of skepticism,
Yeah, that's fair. It's easy to get caught up in exciting theories, but it's important to look at the evidence, to be critical. So how do we approach these ideas responsibly? How do we get closer to what's actually true?
I think the key is to have a balanced perspective. Be curious, be open-minded, but also be critical. Ask questions, consider different viewpoints, and remember, our understanding of the past, it's always changing, always evolving.
It's like you're like detectives, right? Gathering clues and piecing together this puzzle. And maybe we won't ever have all the pieces, but the search, the exploration, that's what's so exciting.
Exactly. And even when we're dealing with ideas that seem out there, like the Anunnaki or Atlanteans, it's still worth looking at the mythology, the symbolism behind them, because those stories, they often have deeper truths hidden in them, insights into what it means to be human.
I like that. It's not just about finding the literal truth, but understanding the deeper meaning, the symbolism in these ancient stories. It adds another layer to the whole exploration.
Absolutely. And speaking of layers, one thing that I find really fascinating is this idea that ancient civilizations, they might have had a much deeper understanding of consciousness, of spirituality than we do today.
Really? What makes you say that?
Well, a lot of ancient cultures, they had this holistic view of the world. They understood that everything was connected. They emphasized the power of energy, and they focused on living in harmony with nature. And these are ideas that, that modern science and modern spirituality are starting to look at again.
Yeah, it's interesting. Ideas that used to be seen as mystical or whatever, they're being re-examined by science now. Things like, I don't know, quantum entanglement, the power of a thought. They all kind of echo these old beliefs.
Right. And it makes you think maybe these ancient cultures, they perceived reality differently. They had access to knowledge that we're only just starting to rediscover.
It's like we're coming full circle.
Yeah.
Bringing ancient wisdom together with modern understanding to create a more complete picture of ourselves in the universe.
I think you nailed it. It's about integrating all these different ways of knowing, of seeing the world, to have a bigger, more holistic perspective.
This is really making me think differently. It's like we're pushing past the limits of
Yeah.
how we currently understand things. Yeah, it's like we can like expand what we think is possible, you know?
Exactly. And that idea of bringing together ancient wisdom and modern inquiry, that's like a big theme in Carson's work. Earlier you mentioned his book Compendium of the Emerald Tablets. What can you tell me about those tablets?
To be honest, I don't know as much about them as I'd like to. I know they're ancient texts, right? And they're supposed to have all this isncredible knowledge
Mhm.
of alchemy and astrology, stuff like that, even like the nature of the universe.
Yeah, that's right. They're attributed to this figure, Hermes Trismegistus, and he's kind of shrouded in mystery. People associate him with ancient wisdom, in Egypt, Greece, places like that. And the tablets themselves, they're said to be made of emerald or something similar. And the writing on them, people have been studying it and interpreting it for centuries.
So these are ancient texts that might hold like the secrets of the universe.
Yeah.
No wonder Carson's so into them. And he thinks there are connections between these writings and modern science.
Exactly. He says these tablets have knowledge that we're just starting to understand now through science. Like it's a blueprint, a
Right.
blueprint for understanding the universe.
That's incredible. It really makes you think, like, what else is out there? What other hidden knowledge might be waiting for us?
It's exciting, isn't it? And it just shows, you got to be open-minded when you're exploring these ancient mysteries. We don't have all the answers, but the search it's what makes it so cool.
Totally agree. This whole conversation has been awesome. It's a good reminder that there's always more to learn. We got to push the boundaries.
Yeah.
And embrace the mysteries that are still out there.
I agree. So as we wrap up our deep dive into ancient artifacts and all this talk of advanced civilizations, what do you hope people take away from this? What's the main takeaway?
I think more than anything, people should be curious, be open to new possibilities. I mean, the evidence for these advanced ancient civilizations, the idea of ancient astronauts, this whole thing about knowledge being cyclical, these are big ideas. They make us rethink history and where we fit into the universe.
Well said. And whether you believe it all or you're skeptical, it's important to be open-minded, to look at things from different angles.
Absolutely. Embrace the mystery, let yourself be amazed.
And remember, the past has a lot to teach us. It can help us understand the present and maybe even guide us in the future.
Great point. Well, everyone, that's our deep dive for today. We've been exploring ancient artifacts and the possibility of advanced civilizations. Hope you enjoyed the ride.
And if you want to dive even deeper, check out Billy Carson's work, his book, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets. That's a great place to start.
Until next time, everyone, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and never, never lose that sense of wonder.